I used to believe failure meant I wasn't good enough. I studied for weeks, barely slept, and still failed. It felt like the world was laughing at me. I remember sitting there, staring at my paper, my heart sinking. I wanted to quit. I thought, maybe I'm just not the kind of person who succeeds. But that night, something shifted. I opened my notes again. I looked at what I missed. And for the first time, I asked myself, not, why did I fail? But, what can I learn from this? That question changed everything. It made failure less scary, more like a teacher, than an enemy. Because the truth is, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. And today, I want to share with you what happens when we stop running from failure and start learning from it. I remember the first time I failed at something I truly cared about. It wasn't just disappointing. It hurt. It felt personal. Like my effort didn't matter. Like I wasn't good enough no matter how hard I tried. I studied for weeks. I repeated formulas, rewrote notes, stayed up late, skipped breaks. But when I saw the score, my mind went blank. I failed. Completely. In that moment, every bit of confidence I had disappeared. I felt small, invisible. You know that feeling when you want to disappear? That was me. I wanted to give up, throw everything away, and pretend I didn't care. But deep down, I did care. Too much, maybe. And that's the tricky thing about failure. It makes you question your worth before it teaches you your strength. I sat alone that night, replaying everything in my head. The exam questions, my notes, my mistakes. I blamed myself. I blamed luck. I even blamed the teacher. Anything to avoid facing the truth. I didn't understand as much as I thought I did. That realization stung. But it was also the start of something new. Because at some point, I stopped crying. I took a breath. And I looked again. That's when I saw it. My errors weren't proof that I was dumb. They were clues, signs pointing to where I could grow. So, I made a decision. Not a big heroic one, just a quiet promise to myself. I'll try again. Not to prove I'm perfect, but to understand what went wrong. The next day, I went to my teacher. My hands were shaking. I thought she'd be disappointed. Instead, she smiled. She said something I'll never forget. Failing is part of learning. Simple words, but they changed everything. Because no one had ever told me that before. No one had told me that failing didn't make me broken. It made me human. When she explained what I got wrong, I realized how close I had been. Sometimes we think failure means we missed everything, but really, we just missed a few steps. I wasn't far from the answer. I just needed guidance. And for the first time, I felt a little less afraid to ask for help. That's the thing about pride. It keeps you stuck in silence. But curiosity, that tiny spark inside you, can pull you forward if you let it. I started studying differently after that day. I stopped memorizing and started understanding. Instead of running from mistakes, I looked for them. I learned to ask better questions. And little by little, my fear began to fade. I began to see failure not as an ending, but as a beginning disguised in frustration. Every mistake became a message, every wrong answer, a chance to do better. And the more I listened to those messages, the more progress I made. You see, failure isn't there to define you. It's there to refine you. It doesn't decide who you are. It reveals who you can become. Looking back, that first failure wasn't my downfall. It was my teacher. It taught me patience, humility, and courage. The kind of courage that whispers, try again even when your confidence is shaking. So if you're listening and you failed recently, I want you to remember this. Failure is not your ending. It's your education. Let it teach you, guide you, and shape you into someone stronger. Because one day, you'll look back and realize that failure was your turning point. When I first decided to ask for help, it felt like admitting defeat. I was nervous, embarrassed, unsure of what to say. It's strange, isn't it? How hard it is to say, I don't understand. We live in a world that celebrates confidence, not confusion. But the truth is, learning begins with not knowing. The next morning, I walked into the classroom early. My teacher was there, sorting papers. I hesitated, clutching my test paper tightly. She looked up and smiled. That smile made it easier to breathe. I told her I failed, that I tried my best, but didn't get it. She listened. No judgment, no sigh of disappointment, just calm understanding. Then she said something simple, something I still repeat to myself. Failing is part of learning. You're not behind. You're in progress. Those words changed the way I saw everything. I realized I had been measuring my worth by results, not by growth. I thought learning was about getting it right, but it's really about trying until it makes sense. That's when the shift happened. From shame to curiosity. I started asking questions, not to impress, but to understand. Every answer I received opened a new door. Every mistake showed me a better path. And little by little, I began to see that seeking help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. We often think independence means doing everything alone, but true independence comes from knowing when to reach out. No one learns in isolation. Every expert once asked for guidance, and the smartest people I know are the ones who never stop asking why. When I learned that, I started viewing help as partnership, not pity. My teacher didn't just explain answers. She helped me see patterns, logic, and connection. She showed me that mistakes are mirrors. They reflect what we need to see most. From that day on, I changed how I studied. Instead of hiding my confusion, I faced it. I joined study groups, discussed problems, shared my thoughts. Sometimes I was wrong, sometimes right, but always learning. There was something freeing about saying, I don't get this yet. That one word, yet, added hope to every sentence. It meant I wasn't stuck. I was just on my way. And something else happened too. I became kinder to myself. Before, failure meant shame. Now, it meant progress. I stopped labeling myself as bad at this and started saying, I'm improving. That mindset made me show up differently. I wasn't scared to fail again because I knew what to do after. Failure became less of a wall and more of a doorway. Every time I walked through it, I discovered something new about myself. When we allow ourselves to ask for help, we invite growth. We stop pretending we have it all figured out and start building real understanding. It's not about surrendering control. It's about expanding it. Because asking for help doesn't make you small, it makes you capable of more. And when you learn to lean on others, you eventually learn to stand stronger on your own. So if you're listening and you've been afraid to ask for help, remember this. You don't have to do it alone. Learning isn't a solo performance. It's a shared journey. Someone out there is ready to guide you, just like my teacher did for me. And one day, you'll be that person for someone else. That's how growth works. We learn, we share, and we pass it on. The biggest change didn't happen overnight. It began quietly, like a small light flickering in a dark room. After hearing my teacher's words, something shifted in me. Failing is part of learning. It kept echoing in my head. At first, I didn't fully believe it, but I wanted to. I wanted to stop feeling broken every time I made a mistake. I wanted to see failure differently, not as a punishment, but as a signal. So I started paying attention to my thoughts. Whenever I failed or got something wrong, I noticed the voice in my head. It said things like, "You're not smart enough," or "You'll never get this." That voice was loud, harsh, familiar. But slowly, I began to answer it. I'd say, Maybe I don't get it yet, but I can learn. It was awkward at first, almost unnatural, but it worked. Little by little, my inner dialogue began to change. And when your thoughts shift, your world shifts with them. I began to see patterns in how I approach challenges. Before, I would avoid hard tasks because I feared failure. Now, I leaned in, curious about what they could teach me. Instead of saying, I can't do this, I started asking, what do I need to understand? That one change in language opened doors I didn't even know existed. It turned frustration into focus and fear into motivation. I wasn't just studying anymore. I was exploring. It's amazing how powerful perspective can be. The same event, viewed through a different lens, feels completely different. The failed test that once made me cry now look like feedback. Every red mark on the paper was a map, showing me where to go next. That's when I understood what my teacher truly meant. Failure isn't an ending, it's a guidepost. It points you toward what matters, what still needs work, what's waiting to be learned. Once I accepted that, I started to feel lighter. The pressure to be perfect faded. I didn't need to know everything. I just needed to keep learning. That realization changed how I lived, not just how I studied. When I stopped chasing perfection, I started enjoying the process. Learning became less about achievement and more about discovery. And in that shift, I found something I didn't expect: peace. You see, mindset isn't something we're born with, it's something we build. It grows through experience, reflection, and a little courage. Every time we choose growth over guilt, our mindset expands. Every time we say, I can try instead of I can't, we rewrite our story. That's the quiet magic of change. It begins inside, invisible at first. And then, one day, you realize you're no longer afraid of failing. You've learned to trust yourself to rise again. Looking back, that was the moment I truly began to grow. Not when I passed the test, but when I stopped seeing failure as proof of weakness. It's strange, but once you stop fighting failure, it stops fighting you. You begin to learn faster, think clearer, and act bolder. Because deep down you know it's okay to stumble. You're not behind. You're evolving. So if you're in that space now, frustrated, tired, doubting yourself, I want you to pause and breathe. Ask yourself, what is this experience trying to teach me? The answer might surprise you, because sometimes the lessons that hurt the most are the ones that shape us the deepest. And once you learn to embrace that truth, failure loses its power, and you find yours. Progress doesn't happen in big leaps. It happens quietly, step by step. After changing my mindset, I began to notice small shifts in how I studied, how I thought, how I approached challenges. Every day I did a little better. Some days, just showing up was the victory. Other days, I made real progress, solving a problem I couldn't before, remembering a concept that once confused me. Each moment mattered. Each step built momentum. But progress isn't always obvious. There were still days I felt stuck, days I doubted whether anything was changing. I remember one evening, staring at my notes, feeling like I was back at square one. The old frustration started to creep in. That voice again. Maybe you're not improving? But then I paused. I looked back at how far I'd come. The pages filled with corrections, the new habits I'd built, the confidence I'd started to feel. Progress was there, quiet, subtle, but real. And I realized growth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. That realization taught me patience. Learning takes time, and that's okay. We live in a world that loves quick results, instant rewards, fast success. But real change is slow, like watching a tree grow. You don't see it every day, but one day you look up, and it's stronger, taller, rooted. That's how I felt. My understanding deepened. not because of one big moment, but because of steady persistence. I started focusing on consistency over perfection. Even when I didn't feel motivated, I tried to do something small. Review one topic, solve one problem, reread one page. Each small effort added up, like drops filling a bucket. It wasn't glamorous, but it was powerful. And the more I practiced, the more I trusted the process. One afternoon, I took another test. This time, I didn't panic. I answered each question slowly, carefully, understanding the why behind it. When I got my results, I hadn't just passed, I had improved dramatically. That moment wasn't about the grade. It was about what it represented. Every mistake, every doubt, every long night had led me here. Progress had found me because I refused to quit. But the most important lesson wasn't about academics. It was about how I viewed myself. I stopped seeing effort as a sign of weakness. I started seeing it as proof of growth. I learned that showing up, even when things are tough, is an act of courage. And that quiet persistence is far stronger than bursts of motivation that fade too quickly. You see, progress doesn't always look like success. Sometimes it looks like trying again after failing. Sometimes it's choosing to keep going when no one's watching. It's the invisible work that eventually becomes visible. And that's the kind of progress that lasts. The kind that changes who you are, not just what you do. Looking back, I'm grateful for the slow days, the frustrating nights, the small victories, because that's where resilience is built, in the quiet, unseen effort of not giving up. Each mistake taught me something. Each attempt made me stronger. And eventually, I didn't just become better at studying, I became better at believing in myself. So if you're on your own journey right now, waiting for big results, remember this. Progress might not be loud, but it's happening. Every effort counts. Every try matters. Keep showing up. Keep learning. Keep going. Because one day you'll look back and realize the progress was there all along, growing with you, step by step. The day I passed the next test felt different from what I expected. It wasn't loud or dramatic. There was no cheering, no big celebration. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that fills you with peace. When I saw my score, I smiled, but not because I had finally succeeded. I smiled because I understood what that success meant. It wasn't just a number on paper. It was proof of everything I had learned along the way. The sleepless nights, the tears, the frustration. None of it was wasted. Every mistake, every setback had built the foundation for this moment. And that's when it hit me. The real victory wasn't in the result, it was in the journey. I didn't just pass the test, I earned it. With patience, with persistence, with growth. When I walked home that day, I replayed the whole journey in my mind. The girl who once cried over failure was now smiling because of it. She had learned to rise, to rebuild, to believe. And that realization was far more powerful than any score could ever be. I realized that success feels different when you fought for it. It's quieter, deeper, more meaningful. It's not about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. That moment also made me think about how we define success. So often, we think success is about winning, about being the best. But real success is much simpler. It's about becoming better than you were yesterday. It's about progress, resilience, and self-belief. Because passing that test didn't mean I was perfect. It meant I had learned how to keep going. And that's something no failure could ever take away. I remember my teacher's words echoing again in my head. Failing is part of learning. Back then, it sounded like a comfort. Now, it sounded like truth. I could finally see what she meant. Every failure had been a stepping stone, not a wall. Each one carried a lesson, a direction, a purpose. And as I stood there holding my paper, I realized that without that first failure, I wouldn't have appreciated this success nearly as much. We often chase results so fast that we forget to honor the process. But the process is where we grow. It's where we change. That's where our character is built, our patience is tested, and our strength is revealed. If we skip the struggle, we miss the transformation. And transformation is what truly defines success. Because once you've grown through failure, you're not just better, you're wiser. Later that night, I sat by my desk and looked at both tests, the failed one and the one I passed. Side by side, they told a story of effort, of learning, of resilience. One without the other wouldn't make sense. The failure made the success meaningful. The success made the failure worth it. Together, they showed me something profound. Progress is built on imperfection. That's why now, whenever I face something difficult, I remind myself of that journey. I remind myself that failure isn't something to fear. It's something to use. It's a part of the process that shapes you, refines you, strengthens you. And once you understand that, every challenge becomes a chance to grow. So if you're in the middle of your own journey right now, if you're working hard but still waiting for that win, don't give up. Your success might not look like a celebration, but it will feel like peace. It will remind you that every effort mattered, that every setback had a purpose. And when that day comes, you'll smile too. Not because you finally won, but because you finally understood what winning really means. After I passed the test, something deeper began to change inside me. It wasn't just about school anymore. It was about life. That experience had given me more than a grade. It had given me perspective. I realized that failure had been my greatest teacher, far more powerful than any textbook or lecture. It taught me how to learn, how to adapt, how to grow. When I looked back, I could see the lessons hidden in every struggle. Failure had taught me patience, the kind that doesn't come easy. It taught me humility, to accept that I don't know everything and that's okay. And most importantly, it taught me resilience, the quiet strength to keep trying even when things hurt. Those lessons shaped me in ways success never could. Before, I used to chase perfection. I thought doing everything right was the goal. But failure taught me something better. Progress is more important than perfection, because perfection is a myth, a moving target that never stays still. Progress, on the other hand, is real. It's tangible. It's yours. It's the little steps you take every day that no one else sees. And when you start valuing progress over perfection, everything changes. I started applying that mindset to more than just studying. In my daily life, I became more open to trying new things, cooking a new recipe, learning a skill, speaking up in class, all things I once avoided. And yes, I still failed at some of them. But now, failure didn't scare me. It became part of the process. I didn't see mistakes as proof of weakness anymore. I saw them as evidence of effort, evidence that I was alive, learning, and growing. One evening, I helped a friend who was struggling with her own studies. She was frustrated, ready to give up, the way I once felt. I told her my story. I told her how failure had once broken me, but then rebuilt me into someone stronger. She listened quietly and smiled through tears. And that's when I realized something powerful. My failure had purpose beyond myself. It allowed me to help someone else rise too. That's the beauty of failure when you embrace it. It doesn't just teach you lessons, it helps you teach others. It connects us, reminds us that we're all learning, all trying, all human. We all stumble, but we can also all grow together. And that, I think, is one of the most meaningful lessons of all. Sometimes I still fail. I still make mistakes, miss deadlines, or fall short of my own expectations. But now I don't panic. I breathe. I reflect. I adjust. Because I know that every failure still carries a message. And as long as I'm willing to listen, I'll keep evolving. That mindset has made life lighter, easier, and far more fulfilling. I don't expect perfection anymore. I expect progress. And that small shift changes everything. So here's what I've learned: failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the foundation of it. It's the uncomfortable, messy, necessary part that builds wisdom. Every successful person you know has failed countless times. The difference is they didn't stop there. They learned, they adapted, they tried again, smarter, not just harder. And that's what real growth looks like. Trying again, not from the same place, but from a wiser one. If you can see failure that way, it loses its sting. It becomes your guide, not your enemy. And once you stop fearing it, you start moving freely, exploring, creating, living fully. Because in the end, failure doesn't define you, growth does. And growth is always, always within reach. After I passed the test, something deeper began to change inside me. It wasn't just about school anymore. It was about life. That experience had given me more than a grade. It had given me perspective. I realized that failure had been my greatest teacher, far more powerful than any textbook or lecture. It taught me how to learn, how to adapt, how to grow. When I looked back, I could see the lessons hidden in every struggle. Failure had taught me patience, the kind that doesn't come easy. It taught me humility, to accept that I don't know everything and that's okay. And most importantly, it taught me resilience, the quiet strength to keep trying even when things hurt. Those lessons shaped me in ways success never could. Before, I used to chase perfection. I thought doing everything right was the goal. But failure taught me something better. Progress is more important than perfection, because perfection is a myth, a moving target that never stays still. Progress, on the other hand, is real. It's tangible. It's yours. It's the little steps you take every day that no one else sees. And when you start valuing progress over perfection, everything changes. I started applying that mindset to more than just studying. In my daily life, I became more open to trying new things, cooking a new recipe, learning a skill, speaking up in class, all things I once avoided. And yes, I still failed at some of them. But now, failure didn't scare me. It became part of the process. I didn't see mistakes as proof of weakness anymore. I saw them as evidence of effort, evidence that I was alive, learning, and growing. One evening, I helped a friend who was struggling with her own studies. She was frustrated, ready to give up, the way I once felt. I told her my story. I told her how failure had once broken me, but then rebuilt me into someone stronger. She listened quietly and smiled through tears. And that's when I realized something powerful. My failure had purpose beyond myself. It allowed me to help someone else rise too. That's the beauty of failure when you embrace it. It doesn't just teach you lessons, it helps you teach others. It connects us, reminds us that we're all learning, all trying, all human. We all stumble, but we can also all grow together. And that, I think, is one of the most meaningful lessons of all. Sometimes I still fail. I still make mistakes, miss deadlines, or fall short of my own expectations. But now, I don't panic. I breathe. I reflect. I adjust. Because I know that every failure still carries a message. And as long as I'm willing to listen, I'll keep evolving. That mindset has made life lighter, easier, and far more fulfilling. I don't expect perfection anymore. I expect progress. And that small shift changes everything. So here's what I've learned: failure isn't the opposite of success, It's the foundation of it. It's the uncomfortable, messy, necessary part that builds wisdom. Every successful person you know has failed countless times. The difference is they didn't stop there. They learned, they adapted, they tried again, smarter, not just harder. And that's what real growth looks like. You're trying again, not from the same place, but from a wiser one. If you can see failure that way, it loses its sting. It becomes your guide, not your enemy. And once you stop fearing it, you start moving freely, exploring, creating, living fully. Because in the end, failure doesn't define you. Growth does. And growth is always, always within reach. Looking back, I see failure differently now. It's not a shadow that follows me. It's a light that guides me. Every mistake, every setback, every difficult moment has shaped who I've become. Failure taught me courage, patience, and the beauty of starting again. It reminded me that growth doesn't come from getting everything right. It comes from not giving up. And maybe that's what success truly is. The choice to keep trying, to keep learning, to keep believing. Because in the end, failure isn't your enemy. It's your teacher, your mirror, your quiet push forward. So wherever you are right now,